this lesson, you're going to learn the difference between will and going to. Both of these are used to talk about future, but they have different meaning. This lesson is a part of series of lessons that has been created by Africanphile TV to help you learn English grammar. So, let's get started. When we are talking about the future, we would like to mean the time after now, after the present. Not yesterday or the past, not the present, but any time after now. Normally, the future can be expressed, or you can talk about future events or activity using many different forms of tenses. But before you start using them, or before you start talking about the future, what makes you realize or choose the right form of tense to use? Maybe you may have been using them wrongly, but today in this lesson, we are going to help you know very well how to differentiate them. So how do you know which one to use? You can think about it in a few ways. First, you have to think, is the situation formal or informal? Because if you separate them like that, it will help you to understand which one to use. When we talk about formal activity or formal events, it is like saying official, public, business. If the situation is formal, you should always use will, as simple as that. Informal means more casual, more familiar, more friendly, the people you know and you are open to. When the situation is informal, you are addressing your friends, your parents, the people you are familiar with in an informal way. You will be asked to use will or going to, but we are going to see when do we use going to or will. We use going to when you are talking about something that is going to happen in the future or the time after now, but which has been planned before. It is an activity or an event that you have planned for before it happens. For example, as you'll see in these examples down, we use going to talk about planned activities. And when it is something that you have not planned before, we use will. To remember, we are talking about the future, but informal. When you are talking to the people that you know, that you are familiar with. Starting from the first example, as you can see, I am going to get some coffee. I am going to get some coffee. That means you have planned to get some coffee before now. Then you say, okay, I'm going to get some coffee, which means you have planned to get or to drink, to take the coffee before now. So let us continue to the next example, to the second example. Then, okay, I'll get some too. You see, in the second example, we have used will to mean that the situation is unplanned, or the activities of going to get the coffee is unplanned. You can ask yourself, what is the difference between the two sentences? Why did we use going to in the first sentence, whereas we have chosen to use will in the second sentence? Let us take this in a very clear way. For example, it is a scenario you have met with your friend, or you are with someone, you are talking, you are in an office or in class, then you say, I am going to get some coffee. I have brought money with me. I have planned to get or to buy coffee with the money that I came with. To mean, before you come to where you are talking, you have already planned to buy some coffee. You had the money for it. The second example, the person you are talking to, after hearing that you are going to get some coffee, he directly decided to go get some too, to get some coffee him too. But remember, before you talk to him, he didn't have he didn't have the suggestion, or he have not decided to go and buy some coffee. He said, I will get someone to mean, I too, let me go with you and buy some coffee. To mean, he has not planned for it before. I remember, this is informal. All right. Let us continue to the next. In a formal situation. In a formal situation, as I have told you when I was starting this lesson, you will always use will. As you can see in the example, ladies and gentlemen, we will begin the conference at 9. Remember, I have told you that whenever you are addressing to a formal person, a formal situation, you don't have to think more about it. You will be asked to use will, as simple as it is. Okay, let us take another example to make it clear, to make the things clear. For example, you are sick, you want to see the doctor. Today we are on Monday. You have decided that on Friday you will be going to visit the doctor. As you can hear, the action of going to see the doctor is not planned today or yesterday. It will happen in the future. But you will say, I'm going to see the doctor on Friday, simply because the action of meeting the doctor is planned. You have planned it before, so you will use going to because the situation is planned. But for unplanned activity or something that you have not planned before, we can take an example. You may, for example, enter the restaurant or in a bar. Then you find people drinking. When you went to the bar, you are deciding that when you reach in the bar, you will take a bottle of Fanta, for example. Then when you reach there, you find that they don't have it. Okay, it's okay. I will get Coca-Cola. That is an unplanned situation. You are going to drink it. You say, I will drink Coca-Cola, but before you come to the bar, you haven't decided to take it. You are deciding to take a Fanta, but because you miss it, because you are not finding it, you change it. When it is unplanned, you decide it right at the moment. So let us continue by seeing the structure of will and going to in the future. How are they structured? Basically, you will see I will work, you will work, we will work, they will work, he will work, she will work, it will work. You can use them like that, but you can shorten them, and let us take the examples, read the examples down. You will see how we have written them. As I've told you, when you are talking to people who are familiar with you, when you are talking to people, it is an informal situation. You don't need to say, I will work, you will work, we will work, they will work. It's not important. You can shorten them and say, I'll, you'll, will, they'll, he'll, she'll. I will, it's I'll. You will, it's you'll. We will, it is will. They will, it is they'll. He will, it is he'll. Then, when you want to formulate the negative form with the will, you have to always remember this. When you are formulating a negative sentence using will, you don't say, I will not. The negative form of will is won't. You say, he won't work. He won't work. She won't work. They won't work. The interrogative form of future is very simple because as you have studied it in the previous lessons, will itself is an auxiliary verb. So when you want to put the sentence in the interrogative form to ask a question using will, what you will do is the inversion of the subject. Going to, also the structure is I am going to work. But as I've told you, in will, with will, you can use short forms. You can shorten the form. I'm going to work. You're going to work. We're going to work. They're going to work. He's going to work. She's going to work. It's going to work. Like that. But remember, use going to when you're talking about something that you have planned before, that we have decided, not now, but before we arrive at the situation. As you can see in the examples, formulating the negative forms with going to, taking the example, you can say, you aren't going to work. You aren't going to work. You can say, you aren't going to work, or you are not going to work. But when you're asking a question with going to, as it is, as you can see, there is the verb to be, which is an auxiliary. So you start with the auxiliary verb, which is verb to be. Then you continue with the subject, then going to. So let's continue with their use. How do we use them, or when do we use them? Okay, for a planned situation, an example, when we say planned, as I've told you before, it is something that you have decided to do before it happens. It is an activity that you are going to do after now, but you have decided to do it before now. Let's take an example. Unplanned. I'm going to call Jim at 3. Maybe you have planned to call Jim. Then you are deciding the time. You are deciding that at 3 you will be calling him. You are not going to take the phone and call him right now, but you are deciding to call him at 9, which means you have planned to call him. So you will use I am going to call Jim. For an unplanned, let us go on the other side. For an unplanned activity or an unplanned action, you'll say, okay, I will call him in a few minutes. For example, I might come to see you. For example, I meet with my friend on the road. I ask him, did you talk to Jim? He will say, no, I didn't talk to him. So he decided to call him right now. Right at the moment we are talking, he decides to call him. You see, it is an unplanned action. He has not planned to call Jim before, but because I reminded him to call him, he's going to do it. So the action is unplanned. He will say, okay, I will call him in a few minutes. Let's continue to the next example. The next use of going to. Certain. When we say certain, it is like saying sure. An action that you are sure it will happen in the future. An action that you are certain that is going to happen in the future, we use going to. For example, we are going to visit Spain next month. If you are saying that you are going to visit Spain next month, that means you have already booked you have made the reservations, you have bought the tickets, you have reserved the hotel that you will stay in when you reach in Spain. You have contacted all the persons that will be helping you carry the luggages to reach you on the airport. So the travel of going to Spain has been planned before. It is certain. You are sure that next month you are going to Spain. But when it is an uncertain activity on the other side, when it is an uncertain activity, something that you are not sure, you will use will. For example, will probably visit Spain next month. Right now, you are not sure that you'll be going to Spain. You have not decided yet. You don't have the ticket. You have not made the reservations of the hotels and everything. So you will say, I will go next week. We are going to, we will probably visit Spain next week. You have not certainly arranged all the things that will make you go there. Let us continue to the next example. I'm going to, and already decided, it is like certain again. When you have already decided something, it is like saying planned action. You have already planned for it. An example there, I'm going to have lunch at noon. For example, you are in the office, it is at 10. Someone comes in the office and he asks you, what is your plan? You tell him that at noon you are going to take lunch. I'm going to have lunch at noon. To mean you have already decided that the lunch will be taken at noon. Just decided. When you say on will, when you say just decided, it is like saying something that you decide right at the moment you are talking about it. It is going to happen directly at the moment you think about it or you decided to do it. It is just decided. An example there, I think I will have lunch now. To mean you're hungry, so you think you can have lunch now. See, I will have lunch now. You are not sure about when you are going to take lunch, but for example, you reach in a place where there is food, you directly decide to have it. You say, I think I'll have lunch now. To mean you're going to take it right at the moment. Next, another example of a certain action or a certain activity that you have planned to do. You have planned for it before and it is going to happen in the future, the time after now. Example, he is going to get the test results today. With that example, for example, he might have sat for an exam. For example, you are a student, you have sat for a test, an exam somewhere, and the schedule has prevailed that the results are going to be published today. You will say, I'm going to get the results today, because you are sure on the calendar of the test results, it was decided that the results will be published today. Say, I'm going to get the results today. For will, on the other side, possible. When you say possible, it is like saying, I am not 100% sure if it will happen or not. For example, say, I believe he'll pass the test. For example, a friend has told you that he has sat for a test or an exam somewhere, and he's aiming to get the results in the near future. Then he tells you that he's going to get the result. You will tell him, you will say, for example, I believe he'll pass the test, because you're not sure. The results are not yet published. You cannot say that you are certain or sure of the results. So you'll be saying, I believe he'll pass the test. For predictions, you don't have to think about which is the right form of the future tense to be used. Predictions can be used with both will and going to. As you can see in the example in the video in front of you, you can say, the weather channel says it's going to snow tomorrow, or the weather channel says it will snow tomorrow. You can use both, it's okay, the meaning is the same when it's all about prediction. But in some ways or situations, both going to and will might be used in a same sentence. But what you have to maintain as sure is that going to has to be always used when you're talking about something that you are sure or certain, or something that you have planned to do in the future. You are sure of it and you have already planned for it before. You will use going to. But it may happen that in the same sentence, the situations which prevails two actions whereby the other one is something that you are not sure of. You are not certain that it might happen. So you'll be asked to use both of them in a same sentence, but with two different ideas. Like the example gives it out. I'm going to study for my exam. I'm going to study for my exam. This, you're sure that you will be sitting for an exam tonight or tomorrow. You have an exam, it is arranged, and you're sure you will sit for it. So you'll be saying, I'm going to study for my exam. But in the same sentence, as you can see, it might have another idea which is not planned. I'm going to study for my exam, and maybe when we say maybe, it's like saying that you're not sure of what is going to happen or what you are supposed to do. And then maybe I'll watch a show. Two ideas in one statement, but both are different in terms of their meaning and perception. To study is compulsory, you have already decided for it. But watching a show, maybe you might finish studying being hungry or tired that cannot let you continue with the show. Then you let it and you go to sleep. You will say, I will watch a show. The next example, I'm going to pack my suitcase. You have a journey, you have a travel tomorrow, you are going to Spain, as I've said. You have already arranged to go. Then you are supposed to pack your luggages. Your suitcases has to be packed before the day of the travel arrives. So you will say, I'm going to pack my suitcases. And then maybe means you are doubting over the things that you'll be doing. I'll meet some friends for dinner. I'm going to pack my suitcases. After packing them, I will go meet my friends. This statement has two ideas which are different in terms of meaning. The idea of packing the suitcases is compulsory. It's ordinarily supposed to be done. But this action of going meet with your friends, it might change. It might change anytime. So you will use I will because you are not sure. Then finally, these are the questions. It's an exercise that you can work on by yourself after getting the explanations, after reading, going through the notes that you've got. You can now continue with this exercise. You are supposed to read each and every one, judge the situation, whether it is formal or informal, whether the situation is certain or uncertain, whether it is planned or unplanned, to be sure of the right form of the tense to be used. Then after reviewing them, you may write the answers on your paper. First, answer the questions, then you will continue with the videos to see whether you have got the full marks or whether there are some mistakes that you made answering them. It is very clear here that they have even given you the clue that will help you know what is the right form of the verb in the future that you'll be using. Then, after reviewing the questions and answer them, you will come to the last part of the lesson. You'll find the answers. They are there. Then you mark yourself to see where you've made mistakes and what you need to correct. Or even before you watch the answers, you look at the answers. You might review the content. You go through the notes. You come back to the questions. Then after reading and answering them, you may open the answer sheet to see whether you did it very well.
Can anybody